welcome to episode 48 of the Making Stories podcast. I am so glad that you're here. My name is Hannah-Lisa and I am the host of our sweet little corner of YouTube here. I very, very much appreciate you taking the time to check out my latest podcast episode. If you're new here, a very, very warm welcome. And if you are a longtime viewer, an equally warm welcome. Grab your current work in progress, grab a cup of coffee or tea, and come on in, settle in for like 30-40 minutes of chatting about what's on my needles, some shop news, some things that have somehow made their way into my hands recently. Yeah, and like a little bit of a glimpse of what's going on behind the scenes here at Making Stories. We at Making Stories have an online yarn shop focusing on all sustainably produced yarns, all non-superwash, and we also publish a knitting magazine twice a year. So yeah, that's who we are and what we do, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. I'm actually really quite warm. I am recording this in a corner of our bedroom actually, because that has like this really comfy chair and really good light this time of the day, and I just like opened the windows wide before setting everything up, and then it got so cold that I turned the heating back on, and now I'm like really, really, really warm. Which is partly due to the cardigan that I'm wearing. And I know that a few of you have recently sort of asked if what I've been wearing in the podcast. So I thought I would just share it. I try to wear something that I knitted every podcast episode. Sometimes it's patterns from one of our magazines or yarns that we carry. Other times, like today, none of this at all. This is one of my oldest cardigans that I've worn for like, I would say like 8 years or so at this point. And it's holding up really, really well, and I absolutely love it. This is the Kimmerich cardigan by Claire Divine, and I knit it in the very first batch of Grauwerk yarn. I think it's the Decay weight, maybe worsted. It looks more like worsted than decay. Grauwerk is a German yarn company and a little shop in Munich, and they make beautiful sort of German yarns. So yeah, I'm kind of taking a look at my screen here. I'm not entirely sure if I changed something in the camera settings. It seems that it's sort of flickering a tiny little bit. I am hoping that this is not too distracting. Yeah, not sure what's going on there. I am just really, really, really quickly going to see if I should possibly change the LED setting. Give me 1 second. Okay, let's see if that does the trick. Maybe not. We're gonna carry on. Hopefully. Hello. Yeah, I think it should be fine. I'm just going to change it back to what it was before. Okay, cool. Hello, autofocus. Okay, maybe it's the autofocus. I don't really know. Every time that I'm moving, I think it maybe does something with the light. Anyways. So I am actually going to take the cardigan off because otherwise I'm going to get way too warm. And then we're going to start with what's currently on my needles. So I don't have any of those. Last time I had 2 finished objects. This time I don't have any, but I've made some really good progress on 2 projects that I want to share with you. And then I want to quickly talk about one that I've just swatched for. So I am going to take my trusted Hide and Hammer roll top number 3 back. And we are going to start with, well, let's just start with the whip that's currently on top here. If you have been watching the last podcast episode or seen any of the last few emails that have gone out to our lovely shop flock, you will have seen that we recently launched a really, really cool small batch yarn to the shop, which is Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co.'s latest limited edition yarn. Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co. is the yarn company of Emma Robinson, a friend of mine. She is based in Northern Ireland, and she started off as a natural dyer and still continues to do that beautifully. And then a couple years in, she also started sourcing really unique, almost always really local to her fleeces, to have them spun up into custom yarns, limited edition yarns. And we are privileged enough, and I am really honored that we get to carry her latest one in the shop, which is a beautiful blend of Zwartbles and blue Texel, woolen spun, you can see, and a fingering weight 2-ply yarn, which is nothing short of delightful. It's woolly and warm and undyed, this gorgeous dark brown with flecks of gray in it, and it's just really, really, really nice. I decided to cast something on that is not for this season or any of the next seasons at all, but a true winter thing. But something in me just said, look, like this is going to be a really, really nice project for this yarn. And it totally, totally is. And it's also something that I really need in my wardrobe for next winter. Because this entire winter, I've been thinking about needing to make myself a pair of mittens. Because I actually don't have any hand knit mittens anymore. The last pair that I owned, I threw out about 2 years ago because they were just completely run down. They were also just not a great fit, both in terms of like they just didn't fit my hands properly, and the yarn was a merino yarn that was pulling like nobody's business, and they weren't even warm. So yeah. Somehow I didn't get around to knitting myself a pair of mittens this winter, but I thought that Emma's yarn would be a beautiful fit for a pattern that we published in 2018 in our Making Stories and Friends winter collection. And the pattern name is called Holding Hands, and it's by my wonderful dear friend who you all know, Claire Waltz. I mean, maybe you don't, but Claire used to work with us here at Making Stories, and when we first started podcasting, it was actually Claire and I together. So if you check out our back episodes, there will be her and I chatting. And I miss her every single day. So yeah. So Claire, don't worry, Claire's still around. She didn't die or anything. Just to make that very clear. She just stopped working for us. So yeah. Anyways, she wrote a fabulous mitten pattern, and look, we have one finished mitten already. Ooh, it's completely blowing it out. What is happening with my lighting today? I don't even know. So, the pattern comes with 3 variations. You can knit a full mitten, you can knit a fingerless mitten, and you can knit a fingerless mitten and add a flap to it. I decided to go for the full mitten version because I thought that this would be the one that keeps me warmest. And it's a really beautiful mix of texture. So you have some 2x2 rib. I decided to go for the foldable cuff because I think that this is really key to keeping me warm. I want to use them for the bike rides when I bring Ora into daycare and pick him back up and stuff. And when you're riding a bike, your jacket rides up, and so I really wanted to have that folded cuff because I think it's going to keep everything nice and snug and warm. The majority of the hand is knit in garter stitch, And then the top of the hand and the thumb are knit in stockinette, which is just really, really delightful because it gave me the opportunity to see how all of these 3 textures work in Emma's yarn, and they all work beautifully. Like really, just really nice. And look at that elasticity. Look at that stretch. It's really cool. Like it's really, really nice. This hasn't been blocked yet, and because it's a woolen spun yarn, I'm assuming it's going to bloom quite a bit during blocking. So I don't think it's going to change the dimensions of the mitten very much, but it's rather going to help the stitches fill up the spaces in between them, if that makes sense. And I really loved knitting this. It went super, super fast. So I kind of threw caution to the wind. I actually started swatching, and I was like, what am I doing? By the time that I finished knitting the cuff, I'll know if I'm on gauge or not, and if they fit or not, which like I did. And then I just continued knitting it. It's the same with socks. Like you can actually just start knitting the sock instead of the swatch and then check a couple of centimeters in to see if you are on track with gauge. So yeah, I also just knit all of this on 1 needle size, a 2.75 millimeter needle. Is that right? I think that is right. Yeah, which is a US size too. The pattern calls for like a few different needle sizes, but honestly, I couldn't be bothered. I cast this on a Sunday morning. I basically finished the cuff, or most of the cuff, while I was watching Oren play with Legos. And then I had a lovely coffee date with a dear friend of mine who's also a knitter. And I just sped through the rest of the cuff and then looked at the pattern and was like, okay, change to the larger needle size. I was like, I don't have my needle case with me. So I just continued knitting on the same needle size, and it turned out perfectly fine. I finished the thumb a couple of days ago and then immediately cast on the second mitten, because I find that if I do not do that immediately with things like socks or mittens or sleeves, like when I finish one thing, immediately start on the next, I'll just leave it and they'll be there for like the socks that I showed you in the last podcast episode, the lined socks that I just finished like a couple of weeks ago. Like I finished the first one last summer. So if I don't like, and it's just like, it's a little hack that like, I know that about myself, you know, now that I have this on my needles, it's easier for me to pick it up rather than just, you know, remember that I still have to knit the second mitten. So there we go. And I'm really excited because they will be done and then they'll be blocked, and then I'll put them into like maybe a little bag with some lavender to keep the dreaded moths away. And not that we have moths, but you know, like better be careful about those because that wouldn't be fun. God, imagine that. Oh, no. Okay, getting us back on track here. Delightful project. Very much recommend that if you are looking, you know, to get a skein, like just one skein of Emma's limited edition yarn. This is a really cool, like, I mean, like you can probably almost make 2 pairs out of one skein, which is really nice. Oh, I also should have said I'm knitting the smallest size for me. So yeah. It also like comes with length instructions, which I find really, really nice because you just, you know, knit to wherever it says like, okay, measure that you still have 4 centimeters of like hand showing out of the top of your mitten, and then start the crown decreases and stuff. So they just fit really, really well. And I'm very glad that I cast them on. Speaking of Emma's yarn, if you do not want to knit mittens in the summer, which I also can understand, don't get me wrong, I have put together a Pinterest board with pattern ideas that would work really, really well for this yarn. And I was quite selective with those patterns because I think it can be a little bit hard with such a dark yarn with like the wooliness to it and the bloom to it that a woolen spun yarn has. It can be a tiny little bit difficult to pick stitch patterns that are going to show up really well. And so I put together a full Pinterest board. I also did a written interview with Emma about the story behind this yarn. I mean, there's a reason we're called Making Stories, right? Like, I just really, really like sharing the stories behind the products that we carry and the people that we work with. And so there's now a piece on the blog that dives into Emma's story behind the yarn, which is really cool because it's sourced so close to her home. When we launched the Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co. limited edition yarn, at the same time, we also launched a new non-superwash, no nylon sock yarn by my dear friend Saskia from Ovis, etc. That yarn is called Close, and it's custom spun by John Irwin Textiles. You can hear all about it and see all of the beautiful colors in my last podcast episode. That is also now available. And same as for Emma's yarn, I've also interviewed Saskia, so there's the entire story behind Close on the blog now. And there's a Pinterest board, a brand new one, with patterns for natural sock yarns. So there are a couple of things to natural sock yarns that make them more durable, but that also, again, make picking patterns a teeny bit tricky. So at the beginning of sort of my curation journey of putting together the first collections, there were a couple of sock patterns that we paired with yarns that didn't necessarily make those patterns shine. And I'm so really sad about it because they are beautiful patterns. But like the high twist and also a tiny bit of a halo that a lot of natural sock yarns have that just make them more durable. High twist because it's going to keep the yarn from breaking, even under stress. And halo because it's an indication that the scales of the fiber and the stitches will really cling well together and almost felt a little bit, which is actually a really good thing in natural socks and socks that are knitted with natural yarns. So no nylon added to them. Like a little bit of felting under the ball of your foot or at the heel is actually going to strengthen those areas. So sorry, that was like a complete side note. I just got sidetracked there. What's new? Let's be honest. That Pinterest board is all about patterns that work well with natural yarns, including Close. So go over to makingstories.com, check out both blog posts. You can find them under blog in the nav bar, and then in the blog post you can find the Pinterest boards. Or you go directly to Pinterest and search for Making Stories, then you'll find us. Okay. So that was the first work in progress that I wanted to show you. The second one is my current project from our latest issue 9, the Blossom Tee. So this is a delightful cropped, boxy, V-necked t-shirt by Ayano Tanaka. And last time I recorded, so 2 weeks ago, I had just swatched for this. So it was still in my starting the project phase. Today, I am very happy to say that we have a half completed back panel. Yay! So this looks very much see-through, which I wouldn't mind, but it's good. It's fine. I'm kind of struggling with a little bit with showing you. So so this is the back of the Blossom Tee. The t-shirt is knit in 2 pieces and then you seam it, which I actually quite like because it will give the yarn and the shape a bit more integrity through those seams than if it was knitted in the round. I know that there are some people who are a bit put off by the thought of knitting lace on the wrong side. I don't mind it at all. Like the lace pattern is really, really intuitive. So you start at the bottom hem with this really beautiful riff on ribbing. And then the stockinette portion in the middle is flanked by this, how can I best show you? Here, like this. This really cool, almost 3D like looking lace panel, which is just like, it really is very, very, very intuitive. It's a great pattern if you are sort of new to lace, you want to dip your toes into it, or you really like lace like me, but you love it combined with like stockinette. So like I just immediately knew that this was something that I would want to wear and wear and wear and wear. These tiny little things that you can see here at the side, they just happened this morning. Those are the additional sleeve stitches. So it's a drop shoulder t-shirt construction, and you just cast on additional stitches when you're at the armhole. And now I will continue knitting the sleeves at the same time as the back. There will be a little bit of shoulder shaping, and then the front panel, and then seaming, and then it's hopefully done. I am knitting this in the original yarn the pattern calls for, Pascuali Cumbria, which is, so Pascuali is a German yarn brand, all focusing on sustainably sourced and produced yarns. And Cumbria is their bamboo viscose and cotton blend. And it is really, really, really lovely to knit with. It has great drape, as you can see. It doesn't split, it slides over the needles really easily. So last year I knit with a linen cotton yarn that was very stubborn, and this isn't like that at all. It's really delightful. And yeah, I just adore the colorway. It doesn't really show up. It shows up, it's a little bit more green in real life, a little bit more tealy. This shows up as very blue here right now. So yeah, the colorway is called Neptune. And I'm really excited about this. It's a great project to work on in the mornings. So we had a little bit of a not a rough week or weekend, but Oren, poor little Oren got sick again last week. And every time that he gets sick, he has a hard time, like staying asleep, falling asleep, staying asleep when I usually wake up earlier than both David and Oren. And I really like that quiet time in the morning. Like I love getting up before everyone else, making myself a cup of coffee, and then just sitting down and knitting for like half an hour or an hour. And I wasn't able to do that for the past 2 months or so, because for some unknown to me reason, that's just the way that toddlers work, right? Like unknown to us reasons. Oren would just always wake up when I got up in the morning, and I just felt really bad about this because he was just perpetually tired because he didn't sleep enough. For some reason, since the beginning of this week, knock on wood, I've probably just jinxed it, I'm able to get up in the morning again. So that's really nice. I have my quiet hour back. Speaking of morning, I actually meant to tell you that I was at H&H in Cologne for the first time this past weekend. H&H is a big trade show, so a business-to-business show that is, I think, the biggest craft show or handicraft show, knitting and yarn show, fabric show in Europe. And I'd never been, and it was absolutely delightful. I got to spend the day with Jule from Wool and Twine, and we just wandered the show together, took a look at like all of the yarns that we were interested in. I found a couple of things that I think will be making their way into the shop really soon. In terms of yarns, it was very much focused on like the big commercial brands like Lang, for example, which is not really something that, works well with our shop, but it was really interesting nonetheless to see the color palettes and the textures. Boucle. Why is making Why is boucle making a comeback? Is that a good thing? Let me know what you think in the comments about the boucle thing popping up everywhere. Apparently, I think it's going to be the new silk mohair. I think it's going to be everywhere, boucle next year. So yeah, let me know what you think. If you are on board with the boucle trend, if you're not on board, what do you think about it? So that was an absolutely delightful trip. David took very, very good care of a sick kid. And yeah, that was kind of the side note on H&H Cologne. I am looking at my little cheat sheet here. The last thing that I wanted to talk about, and I'm just going to quickly check that we're actually recording 25 minutes in. Yeah, good thing that I did that, Annalisa. I have Claire, if you're watching, don't watch the next section. You're going to be mad at me. So Claire is the queen of swatching, and she is very right when she recommends that you swatch in like a really big portion and stuff, but like, I just want to get to the knitting. I just want to get to knitting, essentially. So sometimes when I'm very impatient, like yesterday, I just whip up tiny swatches, which are not as accurate as big swatches. I know that. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. If you have watched the last episode, you will have seen that in addition to my Blossom Tea, I'm also planning another summer garment for myself. That is the Grassland Tea by Susan Schädler from our issue 6, which is this delightful t-shirt. So it's it has a lace panel down the front, what's new, and some stockinette, what's new, and drop shoulder sleeve, what's new. So that's just really that's just the shape that I really love. And I am going to knit that in Rerum Natura's Antigone, a 100% French linen yarn that we have in a beautiful range of colors. I picked this colorway, which is called Marsala, and I am quite obsessed with it. I think it's gonna be really, really pretty. And I wanted to tell you about a funny thing, because I swatched this yesterday. So 2 swatches, exactly the same stitch count, not the same number of rows, I don't think, but the same stitch count. And you can see, I should probably do it the other way around so you can actually see. So yeah, you can see that they are different lengths, right? Hello, please focus. So yeah, so this one is a lot longer than this one. The longer one is knit on 4mm needles. The shorter one is knit on 3.5mm needles. In terms of gauge, they're exactly the same. What? Yes, this can sometimes happen with yarns like linen that have, when you're knitting them at like a more open gauge, a lot of air in between the stitches, as you can see here, right? And sometimes that air, means that the stitch gauge is just the same. That was a really good explanation. Sorry, it's my brain. But it was really interesting because I counted the stitches, the gauge before blocking, and I'm actually on gauge with both of them. The interesting part is, though, that I really much prefer the fabric, the sort of like a little bit more structured fabric of the smaller needle size over the much drapier fabric of the larger needle size. Now, it is a little bit see-through. The thing is, the original pattern was called for a fingering weight yarn held together with a silk mohair yarn, and because of the silk mohair, like those gaps in between the stitches, they wouldn't really show up that well. For this one, they definitely do. I do need to think about whether I mind or not. I actually really like the fabric that this gives me. So I'm thinking that maybe it will actually be okay, and I can just wear it with like a pretty bralette or something under it. Yeah, because I do quite like the fabric, and it would also be appealing to me to knit something on 3.5mm needles. I actually don't have a 3mm needle, so I could go down to 3.25 or the 2.75. But if I go down to the 2.75, then I need to always change the needles with my Blossom Tea, which I don't really want to do. So yeah, I think maybe this is going to be it. I think it's going to be really pretty. And it's going to go great with like black and blue, and yeah. So yeah, that is one of the projects that's gonna, or like the project that's gonna jump on my needles next. What else did I want to talk about before shop news? Ooh, I have something really exciting that I just not pulled out of the post. I just picked up from the post office this morning. So after I dropped off Oren at daycare, I am recording this on like a Thursday before it's going to be a long weekend in Berlin. And so after I dropped Oren off at the daycare, I spent 2 hours running errands, mostly grocery shopping, and going to the post office to pick up the sorry, just like random coughing fit. This beauty. So I have very quickly and utterly fallen in love with the work that the Hide and Hammer team in the UK does, especially Nu, the founder, who's just absolutely awesome. I mean, you've seen this in I think every single podcast episode since I came back from Unravel a couple of months ago. Because the project bags are just so good and practical. And about 2 weeks ago, Hide and Hammer launched their first Originals collection, which was sort of like a limited edition drop of a couple of different, or like 4 different bags that all had these neon pink leather handles. And I just couldn't resist. Just look at them. And like I got the dark green, and it's just absolutely delightful. So it's the same model as this one, and it's just all folded up. But I thought I'd show you because it's awesome. And if you don't know about Hide and Hammer yet, you should know about them because they make amazing project bags and leather goods. Okay, I want to move on to shop news. I have quite a long list of shop news and shop announcements. If that's not of interest to you, feel free to, skip it. But this is also, like an opportunity for me to share a bit of behind the scenes and also share with you what's coming in the next few weeks, because it's important for me that you know that, because I'm all about helping you make conscious purchase decisions. Like, don't get me wrong, like, come on, like impulse purchases, yes, very much so. But I really like the feeling of you knowing what's coming so that you can plan ahead a little bit. Sometimes that's not possible. I will show you one example where that wasn't possible in a second. But I want to actually start with something else, which is an announcement that our issue 9 yarn kits, so there's actually a basket with issue 9 yarns here, our issue 9 yarn kits will retire on April 15th. So as you know, we always launch a limited number of yarns and kits to go with our latest issue, which was issue 9. And these kits are then always available for a month after the release date. And the month is almost up. So until April 15th, you can still get the kits. We're sold out of a few. So we're sold out of Etamine kits and Circle of Life sweater. I think we have like 1 left. Then we have the Bloom cardigan, the bouquet sweater, the florist socks, and the Flowers and Fields shawl. And for all of these, we have like a few left of each of them, not in all colorways. Some colorways are sold out. If you are curious about those yarns and kits and the samples, check out the warm welcome to issue 9 video on this channel. There you can see all of the samples, and I talk about all of the yarns, and then you can decide whether you want to invest in one of those kits or not. So until April 15th, April 15th in the night, they're gonna go away. Alrighty. Then, this is honestly a pretty random assortment of announcements, but we just had a really lovely restock of something that we haven't had in the shop for a little while, which is our soap dishes and soap holders. So, we carry soap dishes by a German company, a German small batch. So they make them all by hand in Dresden, which is not too far from Berlin. The company is called Toff und Zirpel, and they make these gorgeous unglazed ceramics soap dishes that are the exact, the perfect size for the Hey Mama Wolf wool soap bars that we carry. So they're also square and they fit exactly on here. They are these are super cool. So these are the ones that I use or we use in our household. Because the unglazed ceramic means that the surface is actually a little bit rough. So then the wet soap will stick to it and not start sliding around, which is one of the things that I really hate. And they do have this cool, you can see that here quite well. They do have this cool geometric shape with this line in the center where the water from the wet soap can actually run off. So the soap will just touch the sides, and it will actually help it dry really, really fast. So you don't get that gooey mush of soap, which I absolutely hate. So yeah. These are back in the shop. We carry them in two shades. So this is Natura. This is a light beigey gray. And the packaging is really cool. So it's all paper packaging. This is actually grass paper, same as we use for our packaging. And it's not glued, it's just folded. So it's really cool. I really like how mindful they are with everything that, how they integrate. It's same as with us, sustainability is not just about the products in their business, but about everything else. We also carry a beautiful dark gray, almost black, called Schiefer. And then the third thing that we also carry and that we also got a handful of, so I'm just trying to, hello, there we go, is that they also produce a soap holder that's really cool for when you don't want a permanent place for your wool soap like this, not a permanent soap dish, but a temporary one or one that you can carry with you. So it looks like this when you get it. It's 2 pieces of vinegar wood. So vinegar wood is wood that has been treated with a particular type of acid to be water resistant. It's completely natural, but makes it water resistant. And you just put them into one another, and then you have bloop, a little soap tray, and you put the soap on top of here. And it's the same principle again, here the soap lies on top of the cross, but because there's gaps here, it actually has a lot of air from the bottom, so it dries really, really quickly. And when you're done and the soap is dry, you just dismantle it, and you can keep it in the box that it came in. So these are back in the shop now. And I honestly think it's really good timing because I am starting to gradually go through my sweaters every time that I need to wash a wool sweater, which only happens like a couple of times during the season that I wear them. But now that it's coming to the end of it, I wear the sweater and I put it on a separate, I wash the sweater and I put it on a separate pile of sweaters that are not to be worn anymore because I know they're washed and, you know, I really like to have them at least washed, if not, you know, like cared for and mended, so de-pilled before they, you know, go into a little bit of hibernation mode during the summer. And these are some of the, I mean, core things that you might want or need. It's not necessarily need, but more like want, if you know, to make it to make that task or that, you know, thing of like caring for your knitwear a little bit prettier. Good wool soap and maybe a soap dish to go with it. Okay, next up on my announcement list is a sort of an overview of what's coming in the second half of April. So quick recap, what's currently in the stock that's pretty new is the Rerum Natura's Antigone, Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co, Zwartbles, Blue Texel 4-ply, and Ovis etc.'s close. On April 12th, for the collective, levels full skein and sweater quantity, and on April 13 to the general public, we'll be launching a little mini April shop update with 3 things that you're seeing here. I'm going to start with the yarn first. This is also at the same time the reveal of the April sock box. So if you haven't seen, if for whatever reason, if you haven't gotten your April sock box yet, A, send us an email because it should have arrived by now, and B, close your eyes. I'm going to tell you when it's safe again, or like just skip forward about like 2-3 minutes in the video, because I am going to show the contents of the April sock box. This yarn, you people, this yarn. So, you have actually seen this yarn knitted up in my line socks in a slightly different colorway, but it's exactly the same base. El Roble de la Santa Moherino, which is 50% Spanish mohair grown by David and Jackson on their Angora goat farm. David and Jackson are the folks behind El Roble de la Santa, and they blended with 40% local to them white merino and 10% local to them black merino to produce this absolutely magnificent yarn that I think is just perfect for socks. It's called Moherino. This is the colorway Salsa Rosa, which we had for the April sock box. It's this beautiful dusty pink with hints of darker pink, sort of like cherry blossoms. 400 meters, 200 grams, so that's 437 yards, 200 grams. Fingering weight, really beautiful, super great for socks. I've seen someone knit a hat with it as well. I think it's such a great yarn. So this will be coming to the shop in a very, very limited quantity. I think I have 10 skeins of this on April 12th/13th. Oh, by the way, if you don't know the deal about, like the collective, so the collective is our own version of Patreon. There's 3 levels, and 2 of them, full skein and sweater quantity, get you a day early access to any new products that we're launching. So just to say that. The second thing that we'll be launching is this set of spring stitch markers by Bubbles and Berries. So it's 2 stitch markers and a progress keeper. And they are handmade, hand embroidered. Ooh. by Aude, who runs Bubbles and Berries. And Aude takes wool felt fabric and embroiders on it beautifully. Just look at this. It's so gorgeous. They are super, super nice. Again, we only have a really limited quantity of these. I think also 10 or 11 if I'm not mistaken. And they come in sets of 3s. And then the third one, which I'm really delighted about because Oren and I started growing things for the balcony a few weeks ago. And we also grabbed one of these. And I thought I would also just add them to the shop because I think they're so delightful. So this is a pack of seed bombs. So we'll just open it and show you. There is 2, 4, 6, 8 of these marbles in them, which is earth, soil, filled with tons of seeds that are really good for growing butterfly flowers. So flowers that attract butterflies and help them, pollinate and stuff and everything. And basically help the earth feed butterflies. So those will be in the shop as well. I think they're just really sweet. And it's the perfect season for them right now. So I'm very happy to have them. So the yarn, the stitch markers, and the seed bombs, they will be in the shop for the collective on April 12th and for everyone else on April 13th. And I hope you love them as much as I do. Then, towards the end of April, we will have, if everything goes according to plan, a limited run of a new to us yarn that's also a summer yarn coming to the shop. I'm not going to share more about that yet because it's a brand new yarn that's just going to be released. And I'm not entirely sure how much I am actually allowed to talk about it yet. Suffice it to say that if it arrives on time, it will launch with a general launch of that yarn on April 28th. I'm going to give you one hint which company it's from because it coincides with a price increase for another of our yarns. So as you know, especially the rising energy and electricity prices have really affected mills as well. No wonder, because that's one of the primary resources that they use. And for a long time, Wool Dreamers, the company and mill who produces Manchelopes, our unspun yarn, have not raised their prices, but they need to do that by the end of April. So on April 28th, Manchelopes prices will increase in line with, the guidance that Wool Dreamers gives their stockists from the current price, which is €7.70 to €8.50. So until then, you can still get it at the old price. On April 28th, we'll jump to the new price. Just in case you were thinking of, maybe already stocking up a little bit, maybe you're starting to think you want to use the summer to actually make a few sweaters that you want to wear in the winter, things like that. I just really like giving everyone a heads up about price increases. I appreciate it so much when a company does what Wool Dreamers did, which was give us almost a month of notice of hey, this is when we're going to increase the wholesale prices. This is when we're going to increase the retail prices. Please increase the retail prices alongside us on this and that date, because it just gives me the chance to tell you about it. So yeah, that is everything from me today. I hope you have a wonderful April until now. Ooh, I completely forgot to talk about one thing that's happening in April. I was yay, great. It's not on my list, so that's why. But I actually thought about it and then I completely forgot about it. We're running a cal. I was yeah. So, we are running another really super relaxed, low-key knit along for our latest issue. I started doing that for issue 7, then did it again for issue 8, and we're doing it again for issue 9. It runs from April 1st to May 31st. And I host it exclusively over on Instagram because honestly, I don't have the capacity and time to run it on multiple platforms. So it's just Instagram. All you need to do is knit something from issue 9 at some point during those 2 months between April 1st and May 31st and post about it on Instagram. The hashtag that we're using is hashtag Making Stories Magazine issue 9 Cal. Is that right? I think so. I'm going to look it up and then I'm going to put it in the down bar below. And works in progress are welcome. You don't need to finish it. It doesn't need to be in one of our yarns. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. So it's just really relaxed, not a lot of rules. The only thing that you need to do to participate and be eligible for prizes is post on your grid with that hashtag. Make sure that your account is set to public because otherwise I won't be able to see it. And while you can use the hashtag in your stories, Instagram took away the ability to actually look through story hashtags a while ago. So I won't be able to see that either. What else am I going to... prize drawings every other week on Monday. I will be showing a roundup of the Cal projects that have posted during the previous 2 weeks, and I will be then drawing prizes. There will be like a voucher for the web shop every time, and everyone who posted in the previous 2 weeks will be eligible, and it's going to be a random prize drawing. So lots of opportunities to win something during the time the Cal is running. Okay, I am going to say goodbye now. And I hope that I see you again here in 2 weeks. If you like this, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, send it to a friend or 3 or 5 or your local knitting group. And because it just really helps get this podcast in front of more people, which I would very much like. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I hope you are well and see you again soon. Bye.